in Arlington Heights, went to Stripling Junior High, and after my ninth grade, my family of 11 moved to Wedgwood, where I graduated from Southwest High School. We went to McKinney Church, which is now called Doxology. My mother was a lifelong resident and a lifelong member of McKinney, and has a children's wing named after her. I've lived in my rental home in Arlington Heights for about 16 years. You may know my daughter, Lauren Brady, who began renting the guest house in the property out back in order to pay property taxes and keep my rent at a manageable amount. I was disabled in a car accident in 2012 and have been on a fixed income ever since. I hear comments about how short-term rentals take away affordable housing, but I want the city council to know that the only way I've been able to afford my house is through short-term rentals. My daughter has hosted over 500 reservations in my backyard, welcoming almost 1,000 guests to Fort Worth in the last 5 years. I've never heard so much as a peep from the guests that sleep back there just 20 feet from my bedroom window. I'm grateful for the time we've been able to short-term rent this property as a family, and I pray that the city council considers people like me if you vote to shut down all short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods in Fort Worth. Residents like me will lose their homes. Please weigh this heavily as you move forward. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Pam Hudson, which is also a phone call.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes, I live in Foster Park in District 3. I support short-term rentals in all zones with appropriate regulations and a plan for accountability. I want to talk about some observations I made reading the short-term rental report that was published. There's a slide that shows the most active hosts. The first one is Heath Ollinger. He happens to live in Dallas. He owns Square Home Property Management, and on this website, he advertises 35 short-term rentals, which are also advertised on Airbnb and VRBO. That make the 35 STRs make up 1.3% of all active listings, and his revenue of $615,000 make up about 5% of Fort Worth's annual revenue. Evolve is number 2. They're a nationwide company. They have 55 STRs, which make up 2%. Their revenue is $417,000, which makes up 3% of the $13 million. Number 3 are Alan and Elise Medeiros. They actually live in Fort Worth. They have 3 different companies, which have 4 properties between the 3 companies. They advertise on VRBO and Airbnb. The one company is Senderos LP, which is on Blue Mound Road. It's a very unusual property, 117 acres, 8-bedroom home, sleeps 16 people, has its own website titled Sanders Hitch, but they're also advertised on VRBO and Airbnb, which is why they show up in the data. They have another company with 2 homes and then another company with 1 home in the cultural district. Varsala is unique in that it's a corporation which has apartment hotels. One of their websites advertises 38 units on West 7th. So if you look at the active owners, you have Senderos LP, owned by Alan Medeiros, and that one property they have on Blue Mound Road makes up all the revenue for the largest active owner, Senderos LP. Stature Enterprises has 2 properties in the cultural district. They also have Fort Worth ownership. Johnny Trevino has 1 home in Oakmont, 4-bedroom, 5,000 square foot home, Texas ownership. Richard Leonard, the 4th most active owner, his one property is his homestead, which happens to be the 6-bedroom Azalea Plantation bed and breakfast, which he's operated with his wife since 1994. They also advertise on VRBO and Airbnb in their website. So their bed and breakfast shows up as an STR having the most revenue, 4th most revenue. What are some takeaways? Number 1, there's 2,700 listings, only 633 are active. That is shows you that not all STRs will be successful, and that makes up only less than 1/4 of all housing units in Fort Worth. STRs are not taking away our neighborhoods. All 5 of the most active owners live in Fort Worth. 2 of the most active hosts live in Fort Worth. Of the most active hosts, 1 of them owns 4 properties. And 42% of the listings had bookings of less than 30 days a year, which is really hardly evidence of widespread commercial lodging. And lastly, the current occupancy of 22% is only 7 days a month on average.
Our next speaker is Alicia Gonzalez.
She dropped off. We'll try calling her again.
Okay, let's go to David Estep.
Okay, yes, I'd like to say good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is David Estep. I live in Fort Worth in the Tandy edition, and I personally do know John Tandy. He's still living, and he still lives in the house that was built in 1850. Anyway, I would like to speak to you concerning a code enforcement complaint that I have received in regards to the way it was presented to me on the issues at hand. Been having a problem with my neighbor who has knocked down a rickety garage and built a rental property on the back of his lot. And there's no record of it. No permits were pulled, nothing. Okay, so the code enforcement officer came to my house on the 8th, came to my house on the 28th of July, gave me a citation for some wooden pallets I have in my driveway. And the person's name is Sean Weatherby. And he's the one that wrote the citation and left it on the door because I was at work. Okay, and I had until 8/7 to complete everything he was telling me I needed to do. So I never come home for lunch. I work in downtown Fort Worth. I never come home for lunch, but I happened to come home for lunch on the 9th of August. Now, one of my neighbors I don't know how many people live next door to me, but one of my neighbors, his truck was parked in front of my house when I came home for lunch. About 15 minutes after I'd been home, I went out to get my phone, and that neighbor's truck was gone, but Sean was sitting in his truck in front of my house. When he saw me, he jumped out of his truck real quick and comes up and asked me if I was a homeowner. I said, yes. And he hands me a citation. I said, hey, I said, look, I work full-time. I'm 63 years old, and I work a full-time job. Can you give me more time? It's over 100 degrees every day. And he shook his head with a no, like he was being very arrogant and very, as a matter of fact, like he has the power, he has the authority, and that's all there is to it. Okay, fine. So I didn't sign the citation. He handed it to me, and he left. 3 days later, I make a phone call, and I get a hold of that Cecilia Bell. She's the Neighborhood Investigation East Division. And I told her what I just told you, and I went on to tell her about the neighbor next door to me that had a unit he built in 2 days over a weekend, and he rented it out, and he's got water, he tied in the sewage, he did everything he could and pulled no permits. Now, I told this lady, Cecilia, about that. Now, they went out. She told me she was informed by
David, if you can hear me, I'm so sorry. I have to cut you off, David, but I'm going to have one of our assistant city managers contact you directly on both of these issues. I really appreciate you calling. Thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Chris Cunnington. And then we can go, or I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris, sorry.
Yeah, just calling to share my experience in owning a short-term rental. Owning a short-term rental here in Fort Worth has had a massive positive impact on my particular neighborhood. The income that we've generated has allowed me the opportunity to hire neighbors for lawn care, cleaning, painting, decorating, plumbing. And one of our neighbors is accounted on 1 week. It accounted for more than half of her cleaning jobs for that week. It's also provided me with the opportunity to recommend local Fort Worth family-owned restaurants, one of which gives a percentage of all of its income to benefit the homeless here in Fort Worth. And they cook extra food with every order they get, and they give it to those who need. And I love to recommend that to guests that stay with us. A portion of my own proceeds actually goes aside to support a nonprofit here in Fort Worth that partners fatherless teenagers with a male role model through outdoor activities like fishing and hunting. And I've had zero complaints from any neighbor. My home has improved in value and its appearance, and it's made my neighborhood better. I've also heard from travelers from out of state that have stayed here when they've been looking to move into Fort Worth, and their experience has been one of being able to understand what it's like to live in a Fort Worth neighborhood and not just as a tourist. And they've left with more excitement and enthusiasm to bring their business and their lives here to our city. So my question is, why there are no options being considered that would simply continue to address, find problematic short-term rentals that have complaints and are not following neighborhood guidelines, that allow short-term rentals like mine that are improving the city and bringing in additional income to continue as they are.
Thank you, Chris. Our next speaker is Alicia Gonzalez.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm Alicia, and I'm a local from DFW. I was gone a long time in my 20s and 30s in New York and Los Angeles. I've traveled a lot, and I use short-term rentals primarily for my work travel since I work remotely. A lot of people are working remotely these days and traveling and working and buying multiple properties in multiple places. I'm back now here in DFW for family reasons, an aging mother, 2 little nephews now. So, I mean, we're pulling our funds and trying to figure out investments to build our family wealth. And so I started renting a room in my own house. And then my brother and I put some funds together and got a house for short-term rentals. We had to put my mom in a nursing home this past year. We turned her house into a long-term rental, and I tell you, like, it barely breaks even. Like, it's just not covering the bills for her health care and, her living expenses. So that's why we thought we'll put our funds together and make, get a short-term rental. And we're doing awesome. We're co-hosting, we're super hosts on the platforms. We don't create any noise, trash, parking violations. We have plenty of, rules for our guests. We vet them. We make personal connections with them. They're coming to work. I mean, these are nurses and teachers and people who show animals at the rodeos and people who are moving here to attend med school at TCU and I mean, people are moving just, from within Texas. They come with their Texas plates, or, they're moving from the West Coast to East Coast, which I've lived in both, and I've traveled abroad. And, I mean, I'm, traveling with a couple of friends next month, and we're getting short-term rentals. So I just don't understand, why we can't use our, properties in the way that we want if it's respectful to the city and our neighbors. These people are not coming to party. I mean, the data shows there's not party houses everywhere. Like, it's such a minimal amount of short-term rentals in Fort Worth anyway. And then if you look at the data of police reports, it's just proving that they're mostly non-nuisance. And I mean, I'm totally for paying taxes and getting IDs verified and following rules and regulations, going through training. Let the hosts join together and get on the same page and be advocates and proper hosts welcoming people to Fort Worth. I mean, it's the modern way to travel. Frisco,
Alicia,
look at them.
sorry
They
to cut you
know.
off. Our next speaker is Carrie Hines.
Ms. Hines?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carrie Hines, and I live in Fort Worth. Tonight, I'd like to say to the Council and the citizens of Fort Worth that the need for a civilian review board has reached a critical point. If I, a citizen of Fort Worth, can prove Officer Michael A. Chavez has lied on multiple police reports and the city and IAD back the bad officer, the need for a civilian review board has hit a red alert status. Today, I had IAD Detective Bolvera say despite the officer lying, he had not violated any city policy, and then she made every lie about a miscommunication. That said, the citizens of Fort Worth have no one looking out for our best interests. If the city will back a lying officer, will they also back one who kills without cause as well? City Manager Fernando Costa told me via email that despite my complaint against Officer Chavez, that community leaders had written letters for him saying he's doing a good job. 2 members of the Central Meadowbrook Neighborhood Association, Cindy Boland and Dan Haas, trolled me via email and social media, telling me the officer was a good officer. A week later, Cindy Boland was placed on the Animal Shelter Board. Is that how we do it in Fort Worth? I say to every citizen of Fort Worth, the time has come to demand that the City Council put in place a civilian review board or the citizens create their own. But it is clear to me after I provided 3 examples that Officer Chavez had lied on police reports, the city leadership says your voice does not count. Without proper accountability, officers of the Fort Worth Police Department will continue to misbehave. The Brady List shows us that. Demand a civilian review board today. So to a council that says they do not support the citizens of Fort Worth, do you deserve our support in 2023? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Clay Smith. Is Clay here? No. Next speaker is Barbara Meese.
My name is Barbara Meese, and I think I live in District 7. District 7 or 6, I can't remember which one. I live on Lake Worth, and I've owned my house for 42 years, and it's a 2,700 square foot house that's on the Tarrant County Historical Registry or whatever that is. And there's a guest house too. And for the time that I've used it for short term, I've been paying occupancy tax, has been taken out of my earnings. And I just wondered if the city of Fort Worth gets it or what's happening to the occupancy tax. Yeah. If there's an answer to that. I did ask Airbnb what happened to the money, and they gave me this explanation, and I'd like to turn it into the city.
That would be great if you don't mind. Yeah, thank you.
And I'd like to further add that my house sits on 3.258 acres, and I don't allow parties. I have a huge swimming pool. It's as big as this room, but no parties, just your guests. And that I haven't had a whole lot of trouble. I've had a few problems, but anyhow, I have ample parking, and right now I'm not allowing smoking anywhere on the premises because of the drought, and which is something. If you're a smoker, don't throw your cigarette butts out. But yes. Anyhow, I just wanted to present the tax part of it. That occupancy tax is taken out of my earnings, so I don't know where it goes. Do you?
We do, Barbara, and thank you so much for coming. I'm going to have Dana Bergdorf, if she's here. There she's hiding. Make sure you connect with Dana, Barbara, even if you leave before we're done. She's your expert, and she'll get with you tonight. Thank you for coming. Our next speaker is Bob Willoughby.
I say a lot of times before, I will not address y'all as mayor and council because a mayor and council would never take away the people's right to speak. That's the First Amendment. We're not on city council meetings, remember that. I made a video for the night, and what I learned was that if any employee is derelict in their duty, dishonest, or incompetent, you're not allowed to mention it down here. Because what they'll do, when you do mention it, they'll turn it and say you're attacking the person. Well, here's my response to the attorney's letter here. It is not an attack when it is true. The words are in the Webster Dictionary and to be used when it's appropriate. I would call it dishonest when the director will not remove a corrupt organization from the city data bank. The JTW, John T. White Neighborhood Association, is in violation of city rules, banning neighbors from the neighborhood association, and not to mention, they stay in power by having secret elections. All we've asked, I had a meeting with Mr. Cook, our city manager, about this. And the only thing I've asked was to let us have an open election. Also gave him names from other people in John T. White who backed us up. To have an open election and the city recognize it. He doesn't respond anymore. He runs from the camera like the council members do, okay? Also, a director that cannot defend himself, which I filmed this director and will not defend herself, is incompetent. Someone calls me these names, I will defend myself, okay? I would like to call it derelict when the director does not respond to mail or phone calls. Okay, and I'm not alone. I got emails off of this saying that she did not return calls to them, you know? So what they do, and I don't know why, they protect the crooked people that work here, the dishonest people that work here. Instead of investigating them, they should investigate, but they don't do that. But you know what they did to me? This lawyer up here sent me, it's the funny thing, is I received a letter attacking me with false testimony, no evidence of truth from the city attorney again. And will not send a letter of withdrawal. I call this two-faced. They have no proof on me what they sent out and will not withdraw it. I have evidence to support mine, and I cannot say it. Nevertheless, I reach more people through Facebook, Nextdoor, and my first of the month ad in the Fort Worth Weekly, which is going to go to full-page ads here real soon, than they do down here. But it is wrong. Let's see here. I'm running out of time now. Okay. But nevertheless, my video should have played tonight, and the mayor is wrong in stopping it. And I demand a letter of withdrawal of those lies you gave me, Leanne. You know better than that. You're a lawyer. Don't say things about me not true and not back it. I'm not going to accept it. And the John T. White Neighborhood Association, that's in my neighborhood. I want them out. That's where I grew up at. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dave Folson. Bob, you're about to be removed. Do you want to sit or not?
I'd like him to stay, if possible.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, can we restart my clock there?
Yes,
real
you
quick?
can. Go ahead.
Well, I'm still sitting. Okay, there you go. Good evening, Mayor Parker, City Manager Cook, and council members. I'm Dave Folson, and I serve as the director of the John T. White Neighborhood Association in District 5. On July 28th, I was joined by our president, James Hook, at a much-publicized local voter education town hall meeting hosted by Bob Willoughby at the Martin Luther King Center. Willoughby promoted this event by mailers, signage, flyers, his blog radio show, and multiple social media platforms. To the dismay of the confused citizens who attended the event, exactly 0 of the publicly promoted speakers showed up. Only Catherine Huckabee of the Police Oversight Group filled in to present a breakdown of their work and goals. The centerpiece of Bob Willoughby's printed material on hand all featured his ever-present FWDistrict5.com logo and phone number. This is the issue that I wish to address tonight. City legal staff repeatedly warned Willoughby that the city would only allow him to utilize the MLK Center for this event with the assurance that he would not use the event to promote any political purposes. This is a procedure that all the current council members and citizens running for council, outside of Bob Willoughby, apparently must abide by. He instantly and predictably violated this agreement. He promoted his website logo on all the printed material in hand, copies of which I've just presented to you, including verbally directing attendees to go to myfwdistrict5.com site to learn about local voter education. However, anyone who visits this misleading site will quickly find themselves logged onto Bob Willoughby's campaign election headquarters. There they will see his introduction statement, which features a bold type headline that says Bob Willoughby for City Council District 5. Below that is a written mission statement that includes, and I quote, "Hi, my name's Bob Willoughby, 2023 candidate for City Council District 5. This is in direct violation of the guidelines presented to him by city staff, similar to the stance generally enforced at council meetings, where he issues false accusations, insults, and slanderous statements against any and all, while always directing people to his election campaign platform. I provided photo and video documentation from the July 28 meeting to my D5 councilwoman's office, highlighting both the printed material and political speech against the city and this council by Willoughby. I am and will continue to aggressively petition Mayor Parker, the city manager, legal, and this council to enforce your staff's clear directives by permanently barring Bob Willoughby from any further violation of city policy and election rules by terminating his ability to use any city-owned facilities to promote his future election campaigns, including City Hall and this council chambers. FW District 5 is Bob Willoughby's campaign headquarters, and his local voter education propaganda is simply the opinion of one man who wants each of you off this council and himself on it. Nothing more. And the next time we're here before the council, we'll be presenting an honest and effective defense against the endless lies Bob Willoughby has made against our hardworking neighborhood association. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Our next speaker is Layla Talley.
Good evening, Council and Mayor, Madam Mayor. I am Layla Talley, and I live in District 6. I want to opt out of the smart meter. I have said this ad nauseum to Jerry Presley, Chris Harder, and all their higher-ups for over a year with a certified notice of liability, etc. The only helpful people have been Jungus Jordan, Jared Williams, Kendall Locke, but they were outnumbered. Since when does the water department monopoly have the right to mandate a product that not every ratepayer wants? This is not just a meter, as outlined in the code. This device adds data harvesting and EMF radiation. By law, permission must be granted by the ratepayer before collecting smart meter usage data. The water department needed to get permission for each and every install, and they did not do it. It is a pitiful scenario when the police do nothing for the property rights of the homeowner. Instead, the water department uses the police to intimidate homeowners when a contract has not been negotiated or settled. Even encrypted wireless smart meters are easily hacked. Professional hackers say this is a national security risk. The $76 million loan from the Texas Water Development Board, the $3.9 million one-time payment, the $3.9 million a year contracts for 5 years is too expensive. When we add the loan for a 25-year repayment, the total is $6.9 million a year for 5 years, and then $3 million a year for the remaining 20 years. We all know that the 5-year contracts have to be renewed, so the $6.9 million would continue on. Jerry Presley said on Bob Willoughby's radio show that $2 million a year to keep the meter readers is not affordable. So how can we all of a sudden afford $6.9 million per year? A free opt-out program will work. The water department collects an annual total of $1.7 million a year from the environmental fee that is charged to around 285,000 accounts. The Harris SmartWorks Network where data is stored, teaches utilities how to raise the rates in order to have a good ROI. This return on investment can easily fund a free opt-out program. Ratepayers just want access to clean running water. Thank you.
Thank you, Layla. Our next speaker is Tina Hampton. And Tina will be followed by George Childs.
Do you just speak?
Yes, ma'am. It should be on.
Okay. My name is Tina Hampton. I live in District 9, and I'm not in favor of STRs. Clearly, a city ordinance states STRs are illegal in residential neighborhoods. It is simple. You are either breaking the law or you are not. It does not take surveys to tell you that. To be the 5th largest city in Texas and ranked 13th largest in the United States and among the fastest growing in the USA, Fort Worth should do better than support lawbreakers. My husband and I did not buy a house in a business park. We bought a home in a residential neighborhood. Right now, the city of Fort Worth has failed honest homeowners in residential neighborhoods. According to the current survey, the district I live in has the highest percentage of illegal STRs. I'm pretty sure that doesn't include the latest one, in my Oakhurst neighborhood. You ask yourself, if the city of Fort Worth can't manage STRs now, what tells you that they can manage them if the law is changed? The answer is they can't. The obvious question is, why doesn't Fort Worth honor their own city ordinance? I wish I knew. What I do know is the city makes excuses, and a lot of them. For example, I'll give you 3 that have been said to me. Number 1, not enough code enforcement to handle the issue. Number 2, not enough money in the budget to hire more code enforcement reps. Number 3, it takes too long, too expensive to go to court to shut down illegal STRs. Why would you trust the city to manage legal STRs when they can't do it now? There isn't any trust. Fort Worth has thrown it all away. The city of Fort Worth isn't making neighborhoods safe for all by letting illegal STRs operate. Whether legal or not, STRs will continue to expand. They are a money-making business with no end in sight. To the mayor and the city council, you're supposed to represent all of us. At least I previously thought so when you asked for my vote, and I gave it to you along with my trust. But like I said, you threw it all away. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Our next speaker is George Childs, followed by Thomas Torlancasi.
My name is George Vernon Childs. My address is number 742901 Travis Avenue, Fort Worth. Centuries before blood transfusions and organ transplants showed that race is literally only skin deep, the following words were written, quote, "If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die?" Unquote. After those centuries had passed, this was taught in schools as a masterpiece of the English language. One had to only get on a bus or use a water fountain to see that its message was, to put it mildly, not reflected in law. So the person who probably came the closest to being the American Mohandas Gandhi said, quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny," unquote. Now, what words apply when government causes the saying, "Treat others as you would want to be treated," to become, "Those people are the other, and when we treat them differently, it is to protect you from them"? These are the words, quote, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me," unquote. I try, albeit with very mixed results, to always keep in mind what those three examples show. On June 28th, a direct attack on what they show came into this alleged fount of democracy. Between them, the District 9 council member and the Mayor Pro Tem made it clear that anyone speaking on a, quote, sisterly issue, unquote, must have organs and hormones that they approve of. Otherwise, any comment will, quote, fall on deaf ears, unquote, because, quote, he knows nothing, unquote. The mayor's silence during this outrage spoke volumes. This is the seat of government of a city that annually spends $942,111 of taxpayer money on a diversity and inclusion department, which exists in pertinent part to eliminate gender disparities in governance. Wow, dude. The irony intensifies with the fact that this took place during Pride Month, the very core of which is inclusion. And it is buffed to a high gloss by the additional fact that the commission and committees of said department are appointed by city council. I believe my gender has nothing to do with me being here, but if it did, and if doubts of the validity of what I have said was based on that, wouldn't that only bolster that validity?
Our next speaker is Thomas Trolankasi, followed by Jessica Wrench.
Mayor, City Council, I did not see that coming, but I appreciate it beyond description. Every time I come here, I'm usually speaking for somebody else or several someone else's. Tonight, I'm speaking for the female half of my household and suggesting that this council duplicate what the Dallas City Council did last week. That's right. They passed a resolution that protects women's and doctors' privacy rights, simply by declaring that no city assets, no databases, and no surveillance equipment will be used to violate women and doctors' Fourth Amendment rights. The second person I want to talk about is another constituent of District 9. Manuel Mata is a political prisoner in the Tarrant County Jail. If you don't know what happened at the Tarrant Appraisal District, Youngest Jordan, your representative, sat and watched it happen. Mr. Mata and I were peaceably standing where we were directed to stand. We were dragged out and assaulted by 6 Tarrant County deputies. It was clearly a setup by the TAD staff. The video doesn't lie. Mr. Mata is in the jail right now. We're worried about him getting gangrene in the wound that he was supposed to have surgery on yesterday. Whether you think he's a journalist or not, both his publication on the front page of the Star-Telegram right after the last TAD meeting and the fact that Chandler Crouch came here and told you so. Now, there's a young woman named Tara in the back room. I went with her to Internal Affairs for the Fort Worth Police Department, another person I advocate for, and she paid $169 for body cam footage that is past due. The lieutenant that heads the Internal Affairs Division cannot explain why it was not available. His explanation, although in violation of state law, was specifically that the person who prepared it was on vacation. And now for the last one. This is yet for another person in my life, a constituent of District 9. You'll note that the District 9 representative has walked out of the room. It is true that if you dial 817-392 and any 4 digits after that, you have an 80% chance that no one will ever return your call. I don't have to name call. I don't have to disparage anyone. I don't have to get specific. I don't know if it's because they're working from home or because they don't know how to answer a desk set, or there is no one in each department that covers each other's phones when they have a personal life crisis or they're out sick. I have left 2 phone messages for Mr. Costa or whatever number it is for the CCPD funding meeting next week, and I've emailed twice in order to sign up to speak. This is a very important issue to speak on, and I expect to be able to sign up without having to contact the city over and over again.
Our next speaker is Jessica Wrench. Jessica, I apologize if I botched your last name.
Yeah, Wrench down here, Wrench up north.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jessica Wrench, and I am a TCU alum and a homeowner in Fairmount. I rent out my mother-in-law's suite and my detached garage apartment as furnished 1-bedroom and studio apartments. They are listed as entire places on Airbnb because there are no shared spaces. The data provided to you from the data mining company stated 40% of STRs in Fort Worth are 1-bedroom or studios. Most of them are being called entire places like mine because it markets better, and that is what Airbnb defines as an entire place. We don't share the bathroom. But yet they're not entire houses. Again, 40% are 1-bedroom or studios. They are part of owner-occupied properties like mine. I know this to be the case for most 1-bedroom and studio spaces listed on Airbnb in my area. This fall, I will host 1 doctor, 2 nurses, and a businessman for 30 days to 48 days to 3 months at a time, all specifically looking for a different experience than the cookie-cutter hotel. In between those guests, I will rent short-term. 1 night to 5 nights is typically what happens, and I love what I do, and I want to share feedback from one of my short-term guests. She said, as a mother taking her immune-compromised daughter to Cook's for procedure, staying minutes away in this welcoming Airbnb was perfect. The night before, my 4-year-old played in the shower with the shower steamers you provided, and she called it her fairy dust. Then we sat on the porch, and she got to wave at all the dogs being walked by. It was a night a stressed mother will never forget. The personal touches to our stay were unlike any hotel experience. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I implore you to recognize the value of STRs in residential neighborhoods and what we provide to Fort Worth. Most homeowners think their home is an asset. I used to as well. Well, they're actually liabilities. Please do not stand in the way of Fort Worth homeowners turning their largest liability into assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Our next speaker is Donald Crosby, followed by Michael McDermott.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And my name is Don Crosby, and I live in North Fort Worth in Councilman Blaylock's area of District 4. There's a lot of things to say concerning short-term rentals. I am a short-term rental owner. I am what they call a super host, which means I've done something particularly good at what I do and represented the city of Fort Worth well. One in particular thing that took place was when 8 refugees from Afghanistan showed up at our home to stay in our home, and I was able to greet them, sit and have lunch and dinner with them, and it was quite an eye-opening experience to have these people come from a long ways away and be able to open up our home and to allow them to come and stay. And I think they got a good opportunity to see what we're like here in Texas and in Fort Worth. The gentleman that runs the charity wrote me a letter and talked about how he was appreciative of the time that we spent opening up our home, and then we've opened it up to multiple families that have come from Afghanistan. Concerning this issue that's at hand, I really consider it as an issue of property rights. I also look at it as our Constitution was built on the rights of the people. And I think that the people have the opportunity to come and address you and to tell you that we don't want our rights taken away from us. And the more that our rights are curtailed, the more difficult it is for people to be able to operate and do the things that they want with our freedoms in the United States. We don't want our freedoms taken away. None of you want your freedoms taken away. And so I would say that that I'm grateful for you all and the difficult position that you have to listen to all of the complaints from all of these citizens. And I thank you for taking upon the issue. One thing I want to tell you is if it's going to be too difficult for us to operate, you might as well just do away with it completely. So if you're going to make rules, let's make them so that they're easy to operate and it's easy to babysit those people that are operating. Also, I have a 6-bedroom home, and if you curtail it to only 9 people, that's not going to be fair for me to operate as well. And we won't be able to have all of those people come and stay with us.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. Michael McDermott, followed by Tiffany Nelson.
Hello, yes, my name is Michael McDermott. I live in Council District Number 9. I am the Historic Preservation Director for Fairmount and also a short-term rental owner. We have a garage apartment in our backyard that we've been renting for a number of years now. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, but we thought renting is renting, and since our zoning allows renting on the property, we thought, well, what's the difference between renting for short-term and long-term? So I wanted to share a story with you. When I moved to Fairmount, a little history, when I moved to Fairmount in 1984, I bought my first house there as a very young man and in a neighborhood where bullets were flying and graffiti was common and vacant houses were burning down right and left. The neighborhood, I've been part of the change of the neighborhood and very proud of that. I'm very concerned for my Fairmount neighborhood, and I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize that, nor would I be part of our neighborhood association that would allow anyone to jeopardize that. As far as our experience, mine and my husband's running our STR, our hosting people in our backyard, we've had nothing but wonderful people. We have met people from all over the world, as well as all over Texas, and actually all over the Metroplex. During COVID, we had many people staying what they call a staycation, just to get away and be able to get out of the house and be somewhere safe, but not in a crowded hotel environment where they could risk being infected. Also, we've had many comments from the people staying in our garage apartment that say they enjoy being somewhere where they feel safe and by themselves and don't have to listen to people making noise in the wall next door, people running up and down hallways, slamming doors. They usually show up with kids, and they want somewhere that our backyard is like a sanctuary. We have a pool. They enjoy our pool, and we would never allow any loud parties or anything like that going on. And we've had people who come here with family in Fort Worth asking to have their family over and share our pool, and we're happy with it, and they've always been very well behaved. I think a lot of it has to do with the way you run your STR, and you let them know that it's your home, and therefore they treat it like your home. And even those that are freestanding and not someone's home have been run very well in our neighborhood, with the only complaints being that they were being run, not that they were a nuisance that I'm aware of, and I keep up with this stuff with the neighborhood association and my neighbors. I just wanted to say that there's a long history in Fairmount that a lot of people aren't aware of in Fort Worth of renting rooms by the day and by the week. This happened from the turn of the century when Fairmount started, renting to traveling salesmen and railroad workers. I've done all the history, so it's not something that's terribly uncommon.
Thank you, Michael. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming. Thank you. Tiffany Nelson, followed by Doyle Fine.
Hi, Council and Mayor. My name is Tiffany Nelson. I am a California resident, and I am the bad person in the room, I feel like. I'm a mother of 3, 28, 26, and 16. My 2 older children attended TCU and graduated. Both of them have chosen to stay in the Fort Worth and Dallas area. My oldest child has a business in Fort Worth and is now employing 8 employees, so helping to provide jobs for residents. I currently still reside in California, and our 16-year-old is attending high school, and we hope that when he graduates, he will attend school out here in Texas, and we will follow suit and join. My husband and I own a home by TCU that is a long-term rental, and we also own a home in the Fairmount district as a short-term rental. We purchased that home so that we would have a place to stay and have our family over for family dinners and games and gatherings. It is only with the short-term rental that we're able to pay for that home and help, afford to have a place to stay and have family time. After 8 years of staying in hotels, we decided it was time for us to invest in our family. I would like to share with you a few experiences of some of our guests. The way I run my short-term rental, I'm not nearly quite 1 year under my belt, but I have become a super host. I screen my guests. I do not do instant bookings, and I find out where they're coming from and why they're choosing to visit Fort Worth. These are a few of my guests. I've had 3 businessmen come from Norway. Their headquarters are in Fort Worth, and they were here for their business and spent a week long working in Fort Worth at their headquarters. They enjoyed being able to go back to the home after their day at the office and work together on the dining room table. I also had a family come and visit with their children to visit the zoo. Another family from Wisconsin, a tradition, once a year, they choose a city where they're gonna see the Cowboys, and this year they decided to come to Fort Worth and see them play in Arlington. Another family, a nurse, who had to work for Thanksgiving at the hospital, and the family came to her. So they stayed in our home, and they made a Thanksgiving meal and enjoyed it together. There was also PBR vendors that came and stayed, so they could all stay together and work the PBR show for well over a week. Gosh, I've just had so many people come for more than 1 week at a time. It's not weekend parties. I really screen my guests, and I feel confident about that. I've never had complaints from my neighbors, so I request the city council to revise the city ordinance and consider new regulations for all of us.
Thank you, Tiffany. Our next speaker is Doyle Fine, followed by Terry Smith. That's fine, you can hand it here. Thank you, Doyle. Yeah, thank you.
Mayor Parker, City Council, guys and gals, it's been quite a while since I've been here, like over a year. But I think this is an important matter that faces our nation and our city. And all I'm asking is that y'all do the work that the Dallas City Council, the Austin City Council, and the Denton City Council has already done. And that is basically what's called an act of grace resolution. It's quite simple and direct and to the point. And it asks that the city funds shouldn't be used to solicit, report, investigate reports of abortions. And part 2, that the police should make investigating abortion their lowest priority. I think this is very important for the citizens of Fort Worth, especially the women of Fort Worth, that to let them know that it's no place for the city of Fort Worth, or by extension our police department, to stick their nose in the uteruses of pregnant women in our city. That's no place for them to be, or us to be. I think that's between a woman and her doctor and her medical provider, whoever it is. And in my lifetime, I was born in '54. That was the year Brown versus Board of Education was passed that ended segregation of schools in the United States and led toward the way for ending unequal and unseparate. Okay, also the Loving of Virginia ruling from the Supreme Court ended the 13 states in the South forbid interracial marriage. That was done away with. Roe v. Wade gave reproductive freedom to women and had been in place for 50 years. Lawrence versus Texas ended discrimination against gay sex and some heterosexual sex that they didn't deem appropriate. Also, Obergefell versus Hodges granted gay marriage. Okay, well, all these things with the makeup of the Supreme Court we have today, never in my lifetime has the Supreme Court actually restricted and took away a basic constitutional right that existed for generations. And according to some of the justices, they got their sights on these other rulings, like gay marriage and access to contraception and butting their nose in the bedroom on your sexual habits. So the only remedy we have with justices like Clarence Thomas got his sights on these other freedoms that we have in our Constitution is to elect elected officials in both houses of Congress that's willing to codify in the law these freedoms and rights that we may be stripped of and are in jeopardy. And so, and also in the state of Texas, up and down the ballot, from the state to the local county, we need to get, the voters have to take action if they want to undo the draconian restrictions of this Texas law restrictions, because the mortality rate of women in Texas is already horrendous, and who die from childbirth. And black women die at 3 times the rate of other women. And that's because we don't expand Medicaid in the state of Texas. So by class and by race, we're already killing off women. And this restrictive law in the state of Texas is going to be a risk for the lives of women.
Thank you, Doyle.
All across Texas and in Fort
Our
Worth.
next speaker is Terry Smith.
Thank you. Please take action
Thank
on
you,
this
Doyle.
resolution. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm Terry Smith. I live in Fort Worth, and I wanted to talk about short-term rentals. Having a short-term rental allows the owner to earn more income, which allows them to keep their property in top condition. In fact, I've had a rental for 10 years next door to me that was in the worst condition ever, a single-family house with a terrible yard, looked vacant. So there are other properties that are in worse condition than a short-term rental. So a short-term rental is no more likely than a rental or a homeowner to be the worst on the block. In fact, it may be the best property on the block. A short-term rental can screen the tenant based on good reviews or by simply asking questions. Your odds of getting a bad short-term rental are very low and no worse than getting a bad homeowner or a tenant living next to you. If by some chance you get a bad short-term rental, the best news is they will be gone sooner than a homeowner or a long-term tenant that lives next door to you. There is a need for short-term rentals. I've had couples which have included people from Europe coming to adopt a baby, traveling nurses, business people, relatives coming to visit other family that lives close by, TCU parents, and parents that need more affordable and larger space than they can get in a hotel. As a realtor, I can tell you that short-term rentals do not eliminate affordable housing. It's the high property taxes, the higher insurance, the higher water bills, and the higher maintenance bills that are eliminating the affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Our next speaker is Evgeny Vorokotnev. No, you're going to have to tell me.
Evgeny Vorotnikov.
Yep, so sorry.
No worries, no worries.
No.
No worries.
I'll practice next time.
Yeah,
okay.
It's all right, it's okay.
Wonderful to see you.
So good evening, City Council. It's a pleasure to see you guys again. I live in District 8, and today I'd like to talk about transit-oriented development, or TOD. So if you look at slide 2, what you see there is a bullseye concept that's used in TOD. And what you see there is actually a light rail line with multiple stations. They have a 0.5-mile walking radius. That's what usually people are willing to walk to a train station to, to get wherever they need to. Now, on slide 3, if the priority is given to the light rail, you will get faster mobility within the city, and you must connect this type of development to key sections of the city: hospitals, parks, entertainment venues, schools, where people congregate. Number 4, I'm not advocating for getting rid of the car. However, if you do focus on car dependency and traveling by car, this is the type of development that you get. Can you please a little more? All right, thank you. So for number 5, TOD is not possible without mixed-use zoning. And number 6, oh, actually, I'm sorry. So to give you an example, nobody is going to stay in a single-family home, get on the train or on the tram, go to Walmart, get their groceries, and then get back on the train to go back to their single-family home. Nobody's simply going to do that. When I was visiting Rome one time in a short-term rental, I was able to walk outside in the residential neighborhood and get walk for one minute and go to a supermarket that was in the neighborhood. So for number 6, this is just kind of give you an idea of how our community can look like. Usually these developments are 3 to 5 stories high. They usually have the first floor with some sort of a small business attached to it. It could be, again, it could be some sort of a store, a bakery, it could be a cafe that people can get together and enjoy. Number 7, again, this is an example of what residential mixed zoning looks like. And in conclusion, this will increase housing because now you're stacking up, but these apartments are not car dependent. So like an individual was here who lived here for 90 years in Fort Worth, he made a complaint because these apartments are car dependent. And so it makes traffic worse. Thank you very much.
You have 30 seconds if you want to continue, yeah.
Anyways, and so there will be more tax revenue for the city, and of course, easier mobility. Not just for anybody, but especially for the older folks, you know, who cannot drive. This is actually really good, and also it gives a lot more independency to kids because now they can actually travel within these
Thank you.
lines.
Have you been in touch with Kelly Porter and city staff yet? If you
I've-
haven't, I can make sure that happens, and so we can have better information on what we are doing on TOD. So we'll do that for you, okay?
Okay. I spoke to Mr. Edwards and.
Okay, at Trinity
He never
Metro.
get back to me, so.
No worries.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Next speaker is James Smith.
Good afternoon, council. My name is James Smith. I live in District 8. And I want to apologize to Tatiana because I never really introduced her to you guys. This is Tatiana Jefferson. As we enter into the 3rd year of this tragedy, I'm remembering my first day here saying that your city was smoldering. Smoldering, smoldering. There are some flames in this city. I said for the past almost 3 years, there's a problem with this scenario. I've said that I've seen a lot of inconsistencies in this scenario. I've said that her family has been disrespected repeatedly in this scenario. This affects me daily because I see her home daily. I speak to her family often. I'll give you one example. Ashley, her sister, wanted a simple question. Mr. James, do you know the case number? I have it somewhere. It's been 3 years. I couldn't remember exactly where it was. And I said, well, did you call the DA and see if he could give it to you? I did, Mr. James, but he didn't return my call. I called the DA before I came here at 12 o'clock. He didn't return my call. I find that problematic, and I'll be taking that up with Sharon Wilson, or DA Wilson, tomorrow. This shouldn't happen to anybody, but it happened. She's not Breonna Taylor. She's not George Floyd. She's not Ahmaud Arbery. She's not Dante Wright, but she has not gotten the respect that she should have gotten or should be getting. Like I said 2 weeks ago, there's a problematic dealing with the judges. Nobody's quiet. Nobody's saying nothing. That's bothering me because something should be said or looked into. In the last 29 minutes or 27 seconds, I want to speak on Manuel Mata. I viewed that video of Mr. Mata being arrested. I watched that video like I watched Aaron Dean approach Tatiana's house. Frame by frame by frame by frame, I didn't see Manuel Mata do anything wrong. He's arrested unlawfully. Free Manuel Mata. Thank you.
I'm going to confirm that Mandy Fisk is not here. Is that correct? Okay. That's the last of our speakers. Thank you for coming. And as we adjourn, I do have an important adjournment. Sorry to spring that on you. I think we've got a picture that's going to come up in a moment. We're going to adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of Neil Gay. And the Rafter G Rodeo website is going to provide this picture, which is really great. For over 60 years, the Neil Gay family has been synonymous with pro rodeo. Rodeo isn't just a job, it's life. Neil Gay's professional rodeo career began as a contestant in Otoka, Oklahoma in 1945. Neil rode bulls, saddle broncs, and barebacks and wrestled steers. In May 1958, he put Mesquite, Texas on the map with the opening of the Mesquite Championship Rodeo in partnership with several other cowboys. In 1979, he was named rodeo manager of the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, a title he held for 39 years. 2016 Legend of Pro Rodeo, 2015 Bull Riding Hall of Fame. I could go on. There's a very long list of accomplishments. There's been numerous outpouring of support from various people, but on behalf of the Gay family, the family put the below statement out. On behalf of everyone here at the Gay family and the extended family and friends of Rafter G Rodeo, we are saddened to announce the passing of our beloved grandfather, father, and founder, Neil Gay. We are so thankful for the 95 years of wisdom, friendship, and memories we have shared with so many. We are currently in the planning stages of a memorial service. We'll provide information soon. Thank you for your thoughts and prayers as we honor this great man. Thank you for indulging me this evening. I think he's synonymous with what Fort Worth really is about. So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting in his honor. Thank you.